Welcome back to another week of punishment, volatility. Let's just do it all. We're gonna scalp a bunch of stuff, and then I don't know. I might even look at doing some puts on UVXY later. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see what this market shakes out. But we've got a lot of news that came out
Yeah,
this morning.
this could be a good UVXY put day, actually.
Yeah, I was talking about that in the group earlier. I was like, let it hit 21, and then just throw some puts at it. Probably 18 strike 2 weeks out would be about ideal. Just what I'm looking at, but Um, it's going to be volatile. We had jolts this morning and some ISM stuff come out, and we got a couple of Feds chipping their teeth. We're just waiting for Yellen to come in and try and make the market move a little bit. But then Trump took the podium at 11 too. I don't know what he said, but I guess he was talking today. We love watching him move the market. It's volatility game on when he steps to the podium. So now we just got to wait for his tweets. Those are going to be the exciting
Yeah.
points of the market. We used to love just waiting for him to tweet something and scalping the breakout like nothing. It was awesome. Those were the days. Making money was easy. Still easy, but just a little bit more challenging to find the better setups. So I'm gonna run through IWM real quick. I've kind of switched the group over to relating IWM and like RTY or M2K for learning how to scalp futures with price action. Education is my job number one. And price action wise, this looks a lot like a giant bear flag, but it's prone to fail here. So if we hold liquidity in any of these zones, we got a pretty good shot of a reversion for a short term, back to like 230-ish, given about half this trend back. But if this thing breaks down, good news bears would take it right down to the 209 pivot down here, a full measured move down. Kind of iffy. We're going to wait and see what the first few weeks of January do to us, and then maybe take a trend out of this, possibly on the outside of January going into February. So for now, we've been successful just scalping the crap out of this range. It's been pretty easy to take a few good scalps on it, and about lunchtime we go and go eat our sandwich and not let the market take a bite out of it, so to speak. But today we were a little surprised to see it grab some liquidity down here and come back for a half back right in the middle of the day. And then, that gives the old inverse head and shoulders look a whole new definition here. But it's in the wrong spot. It's in the base of a liquidity zone. So best chance is maybe give half this trend back, come to the top of the LZ, or just under it, reject, and kind of melt along here until the next news event. But nonetheless, range is starting to expand a bit, and that's the idea where we get into Trump presidency with a bang, and we start to see some expansion, and we love scalping that volatility. So on to you. I saw you put the announcement out this morning for the show and threw a whole bunch of tickers at it, and we got some stuff to look at for sure. Which one do you want to start with?
Yes. Well, before I start with any tickers, before I give people fish, I want to talk about how to fish.
Right.
So, one thing that caught my eye this morning was, Jensen gave a talk yesterday about AI. And he mentioned that AI agents are going to be the next big thing. And, obviously me and you are great at picking out the next great thing and telling people what it is. But I think you could argue Jensen's probably better at it. So, when he says AI agents are going to be the next best thing, I think that's something you want to listen to. And I don't think I've talked about this, maybe not at all, to this group. If you're not using AI in your trading, you're trading with two hands tied behind your back. So what I did with that, because I'm old. I don't know what an AI agent is, but if Jensen tells me I want to be in an AI agent, I want to know what they are. So what I did very simply is put it into ChatGPT. I have ChatGPT Pro. It's like $200 a month, best $200 a month you spend. It gives you, $1 million a year analyst at your beck and call. So I put into ChatGPT, hey, if I think AI agents are going to be a great place to invest, what stocks do I want to buy? And it gave me a whole list. And I can narrow it down. I can have it rank them. I can have it do all sorts of cool stuff. And, the list was, a lot of the names you'd expect. the Magnificent Seven names that I
Of
already
course.
own. But then there was a lot of other stuff, Datadog, Adobe, now Twilio, Fastly, a bunch of other names that, quite honestly, I don't know what, I mean, I know what Adobe does. I don't know what any of those other companies do. And so, those are all names that are now added to my watch list.
And
So I think that is something you should be using as much as possible,
I,
in your trading to help you identify the companies you want to look at.
I agree. I mean, it makes my job a lot easier because I've over the years gone from like flipping through hundreds of charts trying to find stuff that's setting up nice. I'm down to like maybe flipping through 20 or 30 charts, but still it's a lot of work, going through and finding, what is something that is not just set up for price action for trading, but what has the volatility or the volume or interest in it to become a decent trending stock. And that's where AI really, really kicks the bang into the buck there, is where you get not only a list of opportunities, but you get a narrowed list of things to focus on. And you can make better decisions when you have less data to deal with, obviously. And you can go and find some easy charts in there and just trade a few. You don't have to be, Johnny on the spot and trade them all. For investors, however, this gives you a bit of a long-term advantage as well, because you can go and narrow down a group of things to look at for a long-term swing. Say you're holding it for a year or more. You can find that most of those are probably in an area of market structure, I like to call it, where the accumulation at the low has kind of completed after capitalization, and eventually they start to trend. So wouldn't you love to get in on the bottom? Well, that's kind of where everybody else is going to be looking too. And throw AI at it, it brings a lot more attention to it, and things start to really pick up. So we love looking for market structure charts because they're pretty easy to trade. That just makes it that much easier, where you can grab a few groups, you can get into the right theme, and just be in the right place at the right time, and have a higher success rate at being there. So that makes all the sense in the world to be able to have that at your fingertips, and just literally you can. I know I use Trustpilot a little bit, or Copilot a little bit, where you can literally just speak to it. You can ask questions, and it'll come back and talk back to you and text it back to you. So if you wanted to use it the same way, and there's a paid version and a free version, you can go either way with that. But it's that simple with AI involved. It does a lot of the dirty work for you, so you don't have to sit there and sift through piles of stuff. You can narrow it down.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much you can do. It can evaluate your strategies. You know, I think in most of the stuff that's out there now, all the alpha is gone. Going forward, the biggest source of alpha is going to be knowing how to properly use AI, how to prompt, and how to use AI in your trading. And so, now going back to the charts, I'll give you another example. So we've been on the nuclear theme.
Right.
We've been killing it. The problem with the nuclear theme, it's 5 to 10 years away. So the other day I started thinking of kind of third order thinking in the nuclear theme. So we know the nuclear reactors and the companies that are getting involved in that, but what are the companies that are supplying them and helping build them? And I put that into ChatGPT, and BWXT came up. And that's a name I've traded before, and somehow I forgot about it. It dropped off my watch list for some reason. So I ended up buying that yesterday or the day before.
It,
A nice little undercut and rally here. You look at but that November 5 low of 113, came back above it, and so far so good on that one.
that's a good swing. And I remember the last time we looked at this thing was back in February. I think we were still picking on Kramer a little bit about this one. That was where I think that for sure this was a sell, sell, sell one. And there's the Kramer bar to prove it.
Probably.
But
Yeah.
now it walked into, it gave us a half move there, and we haven't looked at it since. And now it's come into, well, now that's the primary move. It's made a 1.5 move up to this previous high here, 136, come back down, gave the half back reaction here. About 123 is where this next move is likely to take us. It can accumulate there and give us a trend because now we have this whole range as a primary. So TA wise, this is starting to set up really nice, and I think this is going to get a lot more attention in the near future just by looking back on the previous trend anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely like this one.
On that same theme, CCJ is another one. Not doing so good today. Interestingly, my calls are up, which is nice to see.
Sometimes the
On a
IV
day where
will.
it's down 2.7%. What's that?
Sometimes the implied volatility swings will
Well,
actually
yeah.
keep
I
them
mean,
up.
I'm buying longer dated calls than you are. So
Yeah,
yeah,
true.
I'm in September's. So and it could be a bunch of reasons, but yeah, probably implied volatility jumped up.
Yeah, I love it when that happens because then I can go and flip a strategy into another strategy and then use the captured profit from that to go and build another position. So um, cautionary is that it does look a little bit like the head and shoulders move here, where we got the right shoulder didn't quite peak. But I never short these until they break. But I'm thinking it'll probably give half back for this daily here, right around 52.80. If it holds here, it's got a pretty good shot at trending out of here and giving everybody the fake, where you get a triple top, it drops, grabs liquidity, and then rips a face off to the upside. That seems to be the setup here. Looking back, this was one that did break down, but it did give you, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. It gave that liquidity grab. It ripped back to the fib, and then it went down. So short term, I think this got some good trades in it. And then long term, we could see on the weekly chart that it's just part of the trend. It's just a pullback. So it's got a pretty good entry point here. I marked this little zone here to stand out because that's about where the accumulation would be expected. And short term, it was a decent little bearish trade, but now it's starting to pick up off of that support area back down here and give us some momentum. So keep an eye on the 2 hour. It'll give you half of this trend back if it holds support here. Same number, about 52.80. Watch for a move back up to the green zone here, as I call it, and then we'll see if we melt through. Good setup.
Yeah. CEG is another one. So this is a utility in the nuclear theme. I've been looking for a spot to get in. I missed that first up move. I wanted to get in on January 2nd, but then it jumped again, and then it jumped again, and then today, sold off. So I bought in today. This is, nothing beautiful about this chart short term, but to me, this is a long-term hold. This is seemingly the leader among the utility stocks, as far as the nuclear theme goes.
Right. It's got a decent setup. I can finish drawing this if we got a moment. I love looking at these wedges because they give you clues. And I call this my trap detector, but it's really the same for any wedge or any accumulation. It can also be like a channel. Doesn't matter. All the same. But you get really quick short-term targets by doing this. Grab the second impulse, measure that move, take it outside the box here. Ding, you get targets. So short term, half a range here is about 260, and then extension 271, 70 or so should be the if it holds here, it should hit that. But it's almost unanimous that when you break an angular on a wedge, you come out too fast, you end up testing support, and then this is the point where you get a decent entry. If it breaks too far below here, that's what stops are for. You can get taken out for a small loss here, but if it holds here, that's where you pick it off. And education is one thing we were kind of kicking around as far as what we do here. We kind of give some fish away, but we also teach you how to fish. And this is exactly what we do. We just analyze things and figure out what's the commonality. And price structure is almost as important as just price action in general. When you find these simple setups, usually Arkham's razor kind of puts them into play for you. You don't have to really think too much. So pretty good play here. I like a good entry here too. 2 hour chart right to that angular and right in the base of our move here. So yeah, we could see it pick up some liquidity there. That long wick tells us there were some buyers here. There were some limit orders in there. So pretty good shot at running on this one. Um, the other one you were mentioning, and this is kind of where we know there was the deal that got shot down with the buyout from was X, U.S. Steel, and then FCX kind of printed on a decent setup. This started printing out a good setup the other, I think it was a week or two ago. There was a bearish move that was set up here, and it's made a little bit beyond the halfway target. Might see some interest in some buyers here because we got a little double bottom on the daily. This is one of the ones you popped up. Are you taking a look at going long here, or are you waiting for this to?
Taking a look at going long here. I'd love it to.
It's right about in a zone where it accumulated before. Or
Yeah,
something.
you know, I think this. Yeah, I think here is not a bad spot. I'm gonna take a look. What do the options look like? I've done ratio spreads on this name before that have worked. They work now. Oh, I'm looking at the puts. Really me.
Yeah, I was looking at puts too. Oh, why did it lock up? There it is. So you'd be looking at like probably February 21st. 45 seems to be kind of the go-to number for the chart here. So if we get beyond the reversion here, there's a liquidity zone. It's old here.
Yeah, I may do a ratio spread here. More short term in nature, but that could be interesting.
I keep trying to get my options chain to go into verticals here, but it's not giving me the menu. We can look at it manually. But like a spread here, like a 45.50 would be fairly reasonable. It'd be about what, 30 cents? And you buy the 45,
I'm
sell the
looking
50.
at selling the 38.5s, selling one, ratio of 1 on the 38.5s and buying a 39.5 and a 40.
What date you looking at?
I'm looking at not going out too far, like a week or two, just
Okay.
seeing if I get a quick pop, and if I'm wrong, I break even.
It's like January 17th.
Maybe. I'm taking a look at that.
That could work. The other thing you can do is like you can put together a put fly for credit and then use that to buy your long. So like the 37, 35, 33. Nope, 33 is too low. There's no liquidity there. I hate to do the half numbers on a put fly. Tough call. You'd have to be at the money on that one to really get enough credit for it. But long story short, you could use the credit from a put fly to pay for like a 40 strike long. And then if you lose, you don't lose much, and if you win, you win big because you're credited on the put side.
Yep.
Sweet. And the chart looks about right for a reversion here. Just watch for this to break, resistance here. We got the L1, R1, L2 is a little lower. This is the textbook double bottom setup here, and all it's got to do is break out above R1 again. It did print a high wave here on a daily, so if we look at the 2 hour, we probably have an LZ right there, and it's pretty obvious wick there. Break that zone, and we run for reversion trade. Pretty easy. So the 40 strike would be the short term, 45 would be longer term. So if you're looking for like mid-February or end of February expiration, 45.
Yeah, I just did it. So what I did is I sold 1 unit of the 38.5s, bought 39.5s, and then bought the 40s.
Nice.
So this way, I mean, it's got to have a big move for me to make money. But if I'm wrong, I don't.
Right.
I mean, I think net I spent like $100 on it. So if I'm wrong, I lose like $100.
Very minimal risk
And if
on
I'm
that.
right, I have unlimited upside. So we'll see.
And sometimes I like to poke out the simple stuff too. So like when you could do ratio spreads, you can do credit spreads to pay for debit spreads, or you can do credit spreads to pay for outrights. But another strategy that's a little more simple and less involved is if you go in and just grab a debit spread. So for beginners, the debit spread is going to be probably the easier to manage trade. It won't necessarily be the lowest risk profile, but it'll be a more manageable trade. And then for us, options traders who have a few seasons under our belt, we can run ratio spreads all day long and minimize that risk even more, and then you get a potential higher return. It's just a little bit more difficult to manage. Sometimes you got to be able to adjust that position on the fly, and you got to know what you're doing too. That's the hard part, is knowing what you're doing. So like a 45-50 spread or a 45-48 spread, if you want to go tighter, would be pretty reasonable. Paying 40 cents for the long 45 strike and then selling a 50 strike for like 12 cents if you can get that, maybe 10. Um, Brings it down to about 30-cent risk, 35-cent risk on a $5 wide. That's pretty reasonable. Sometimes I'll take some YOLOs, but I wouldn't do it on this. It doesn't have enough range to do it. But if you get
Right.
enough range on something where you can get some YOLOs, $5 wide spreads for like 4 or 5 cents
I mean,
sometimes.
this is a name that, occasionally it'll move and it'll move big in a day,
Right.
but doesn't always do that.
Yeah, it's one where I wouldn't necessarily take a YOLO up in the 45-50 range, but I would say maybe the 40-45, or even like say 45-50 into February, you get a reasonable amount of time to manage it. But yeah, sometimes you get really big moves in the day. Like here, you can see some gaps. Those were just monsters. You get those sometimes. So I mean, you could throw a YOLO at it if you want, way out of the money. But I don't recommend it on this one. But there are other equities that I do. So in the meantime, be a little closer to the money on something like this, because if you're in the right spot and the whole thing ends up in the money anyway, and it does have one of those big, huge up days, cool, you make a mint. So pretty easy place. A couple others you were looking at. I noticed you put in, was it FLR?
So FLR was another. Oh wow! I luckily I haven't bought it yet, but I may actually buy this dip. I mean, it's one I own already, but I was going to add to it because it was another one that popped up on my companies that supply the nuclear
Right.
industry. So this is I didn't look at this yet today. Yeah, this is one I may end up buying the dip on. We'll see.
Reasonable setup on the weekly for return to that 1.5 measure move target up here, about $57 or so. And let's see here, daily chart. Daily, it's looking like let's see, textbook double bottom, R1 break, return to mean. So like we may get a 3-bar here where we get the evening star set up, and then typically when I trade these, I'll trade the return to the fib level of the third bar. So like if it closes down here at about 49.60 or so, um, you get an overnight swing where you get a pretty good shot at returning to the fib up here to about 50, let's say 51.50 or so. For an overnight is typical on a 3-bar like that. And then if it trends, you get back to the fib level of the previous high, which is right up here about 55.40ish. And then long-term swing, pretty easy measured moves done. We're right in the resistance area that was previously support, and outside target. I mean, you could see it easily run to 57.5 or even higher. But let's look at the monthly chart on this one. Aha, that's the upper end of reversion in that range anyway. So um, pretty easy shot at hitting a liquidity zone right in there. Let me range that bar right there, that wick. Ding. So a half measure move above the resistance is pretty obvious. And then we'll see if it trends a little higher from there. But so far, this trend's been pretty strong, so it's definitely catching some attention here. There is some smart money in this. You're looking at one of them on the other side of the screen here. Um,
Yeah, I've been in it for a while though. I'm down. I'm down 39 and 33% on my calls, but we'll see if I decide to buy the dip, and maybe I'll come back.
yeah, give it time. It might be one you might be able to average here.
Okay.
And just watch that bar close today. I mean, if it gives you, within the range of the first bar, you're probably still okay. Your stops can be a little lower than that. Typically down in a previous liquidity zone right here is pretty obvious. Like if it starts to melt below that, yeah, get the hell out of the way. But so far, it's looking like it could give us a good entry here, either today or tomorrow. Let's see. There was another one you were mentioning. Was it LDOS?
So yeah, Lados and Parson, same kind of trade. And BAH is another one. Yeah, BAH, same deal. So these are three companies. BAH I own, and have owned, unfortunately. Lados and Parson I bought yesterday. These are all companies that have large government contracts. So you see they all sold off at the exact same time. That's Doge.
Right. Gotcha.
And the thinking is these are solid companies, and that sell off is maybe a bit overdone. Doge is a great idea, but what are they actually going to be able to do? Um, so we'll see. I mean, somewhat speculative, but to me, three solid companies, I like the risk reward down here.
I mean, it gave us a half down. I was just kind of blocking that out this morning. 'Cause I literally went down your list of tickers and started doping the charts ahead of time, so we don't waste so much time on the show here.
Yeah.
And picked off a couple of them I put in red because I was like, maybe the move isn't done yet. Like PSN here still has a little way to go for a half and then the same with what was the other one? I'll get back to it. But LDOS here hit the half mark and kind of bounced. That's previous accumulation here anyway. So I think I like LDOS a little better for entry here myself. And then, right there is the 8 period
Yeah, I don't
break.
disagree.
And if we get, above the 200, it's game on for trend to reversion, at least for like a 164 target. And then above that, give us a half move up. 182 is on the board. I'll mark those both. And then long term, I mean, this could be a decent investor entry too. Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Look at that trend. It's pretty strong. We've made 2.5 up and down back to the halfback. So this is about where people will be interested in grabbing this pullback. So, long-term investor-wise, 182 is pretty reasonable. If this thing goes even further up, if you take this whole trend here, that's about where we peaked. Take that to another half move, and you got about just to estimate, about 208 to 210 in range there for an extension on that. So investment-wise, it might be a good opportunity. And then when you get government contracts, it's pretty much buy the rumor, sell the news, and that's kind of where you get those sell-offs. So it gets capitalized. Here's the rumor, obviously, gap up, huge plays, and then all of a sudden exit liquidity gets found, and capitalization takes shape, and then at some point you either go for the full move back or an extension of half a move down, which it did here, and then you start to find some buyers. So there's definitely some interest in this thing, and I think there's a pretty good shot if it breaks above the 200, which everybody watches. More smart money will follow through and start to trend this at least back for a reversion trade, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Definitely keeping this one on the radar. I like the setup. And then there was Mara.
That looked good pre-market. What you doing now? I haven't looked at it. All right. I mean, interesting undercut and rally at the 200 day here.
It's hanging loose. I almost relate this thing to kind of not necessarily a widowmaker for retail, but a very challenging chart to trade for retail. And
Yeah.
it's one of the stocks that gets a lot of following. So um, for me, I just look at it with my market structure eyes. I can kind of see through the chop and just realize, oh, it's just an accumulation range. Here's where the trend began, and it got tested and back down to support, but it never broke it. There's an LZ right in here that it just held and bounced back, gave it a half back. So here's where we could see a trend continue and start melting back into its way towards the reversion targets long term. But this guy's going to have some volatility first, I think, and then you can see we bounced right off of that level from yesterday, came right to a pivot point, which is about the half back of that previous trend. I wrote the red line here, so to speak, rolled over on it, gave back to Friday's support area after that big boon. And if we get a decent reversal right around there, we could see this continue up, melting up, or at least give us accumulation in range here between about 20 and 1950. So good play is coming from this. I think we may end up with a wedge here more likely first, and then we'll see if it melts back up to full reversion or up into pivot targets here. So it's definitely got lots of volatility to trade. Long term, you could start seeing the options chain if this just sits here and accumulates for a while. Implied volatility on the long term stuff falls off, so you might get a good February swing out of this thing. So it may start producing some decent February options to come into light on this thing. Let's say February 21st is probably a better expiration. And let me see here. If we were looking at about 28 bucks, almost a $100 bill in that range, comparatively to the chart, that's about the upper reach of our previous high. So I think like 22.50 to 24 would be more reasonable for outrights. So start looking there for some decent spreads to start taking shape. And if this goes sideways for a few days, like I said, the implied volatility that pumps up that price on that upper range strike will start to come down, and then you'll be able to sell that one as your short leg, buy $5 underneath it, and then you get a decent spread for a low risk. So be patient.
Yeah, or you could just do what I just did, is I used a credit spread on IBIT to finance a Mara call.
There you go. That works too. So what kind of credit spread do you use? Put side?
No, I did a call credit spread on IBIT.
Okay. So it's an inverse setup. Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, I need Mara to go up more than IBIT, and I need it to be correlated with Bitcoin. So that's a bit of a riskier trade than my FCX ratio spread. If IBIT uncorrelates from Mara, I could run into some issues there.
Right. No, call credit spread's appropriate, at least down to the midline down here about 54.60. That's a good play. I kind of like that strategy. It's essentially just selling speculation on one to pay for your position on another.
Yep.
Love it. That's kind of out of my book, just a little different than I do, but it works. A couple other mentions in the AI space, going into quantum computing, and we've been kind of watching IONQ just absolutely nail everything we throw at it. We've been highly accurate tracking price targets on that thing, and it just nailed that angular today and absolutely rejected. So it was just a clean sweep on that sucker.
All the quantum names are selling off, but you couldn't tell it by looking at the charts.
No. And I think we get a reversion out of this thing down to about 46.80 or so short term, and we'll probably find some liquidity there because there's still a lot of people. I mean, this parabolic trend, yeah, it doesn't have to last forever, but people are still like perma bulls on this thing. And if you monitor some of the socials, like you go and look at like the Weeble chat on this thing, everybody's a bull on that one. I mean, look at the ratio on there; they even give you that. It's crazy to see so many perma bulls in there chatting about stuff, and then you realize that they don't go unnoticed by the smart money. So there's some liquidity to be had here. This is an expected pullback on a parabolic trend. Billions have been made on this thing by the smart money. Let's just let it settle and see where liquidity takes it higher or it breaks. So trends will eventually pull back, and we get some volatility like this, and it's pretty easy to see, well, hey, there's liquidity right in here. So let's see if they find it right here in that midpoint. I'm going to tie it to that wick there. It's a little better. There we go. And
Things selling off again.
if things get interesting in that area, we could see this really give us another opportunity to go long on it. But until then, let's let the bubbles fall out of the bathwater so we can see the bottom of the tub first. The other one that we're looking at is QUBT. Another slam dunk, but this one's been consolidating, and we were able to catch the what I call the trap detector move on this wedge, and it just nailed it beautifully, by the way. Yeah, I'll pat myself on the back for that one. But it's held on to the support level here so tightly. Had a little wick out right back to the regression line or so last week, and now we're just kind of consolidating again, but we're starting to show more buyers in this area. Keep an eye on this one because it's looking to actually find some support right in this area. As long as it holds here, we could see this resume right back up to the angular here and get outside of our trap detector target, which was this guy here. So keep eyes on this one. Don't forget about it. This is one where you want to be aware because this thing goes off, it goes big. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. It's got some potential to hold here. Worst case scenario, if it fails here, just let it get short or short it yourself if you dare. But I wouldn't try to short this one with your money. So I will wait for support, and if I find a good opportunity on it, I think long term this thing's got some potential. So keep an eye on it here. It's going to give us some interesting plays soon. Last but not least, you mentioned Axon.
Yeah, I mean, Axon's a name I've always loved. It's a holding in guns. So, I mean, I've had indirect exposure to it, but I kind of missed. I've missed the long side a whole bunch of times. So, I mean, even though the chart looks like a short,
Right.
I ended up buying in again. I mean, a long term position, but I did end up buying in today.
I treat this setup, some people will see it as the head and shoulders here, but it's more or less a rounding top, and it gives us a range bar and a gap. And yesterday you saw it wick just about exactly to that 540 gap there. I think we're going to probably find more liquidity here. There may be some buyers interested around that 540 level, so definitely keep an eye on this thing for support around there, and it may give us the unfinished business of the full all the way up here. Good Lord, 706, that's a hell of a setup.
Yep.
It could give us some monster trades in the meantime, but the ultimate goal is for this thing to just continue melting up. But definitely be critical of this pivot here, the 540 area. Just look left, there's your range bar. Big old wick on that sucker. It can find liquidity anywhere within that wick and be okay for long term. But if it melts that too far, yeah, it could fill this gap pretty quick and give us a better opportunity later. So be nimble if you're going to be jumping on this one. But yeah, this is one of those names where you definitely want to own it eventually. I think these guys do a lot of great things in the future. I remember when this thing was just a penny stock. I mean, we used to scalp it back in
Yeah,
the
it
day.
used to be Taser.
Right. That's right. They did have a ticker change.
Yep.
I remember now. That was right about when I started trading. Yeah, this thing was done a lot. I remember being into this, and then there was one other kind of fell off. It was more leaned towards law enforcement, but same scenario. It was a penny stock for a while until it wasn't. And this is kind of one of those plays. Oh, hey, look, you can see the wiggle right there on the 2 hour. That's right where that pivot is. Yeah, keep an eye on this bad boy. It's going to give you some fun. I threw a few others in the mix, and these were mostly pennies, but it's a theme I kind of jumped into for energy storage, and a few of them played out well. A few of them are still kind of accumulating, and a couple of them are just crap. So be aware. I didn't post that list really too publicly, but I did stick it in our group and kind of gave some attention to it. I'll talk about the best one first. Um, EOSE. This one, if you do a deep dive on it, has some potential to be a monster. Looking at market structure, I mean, it's got a pretty obvious market structure chart. This is where the trend is. It's strong still. It did break above that previous liquidity high, this high bar or high wave we call it here, and then found it for support. So um, reversion targets are in two places. I got about $8 here on the short term, right back to this little consolidation here. Full trend reversion is all the way up here at about 1050. This one's in good shape for a lot of volatility to start finding it, and it's made a 2-for-1 mm. You can see it went parabolic here. So aside from a little pullback here, this one's got some strength, and if it holds that daily 8 period today, even with a doji, I'd almost certainly expect a morning star to appear out of this for a third bar to go right back to that resistance level at about 580. And if it can hold here, this is one of those rounding tops that I don't ever short. And look, that paid off right here. This was another rounding top that everybody thought they could short and got ripped. So this thing's still being held by some pretty interesting groups. If you look at the holders of this for the bigger money, I think it's got potential to make a decent return, and it is in the energy storage area that I'm thinking will help. Not necessarily be a third order with the whole AI and quantum computing energy demand, but as kind of a supplemental way to kind of take some of the shock out of the electrical grid that we need to desperately upgrade. So,
Yep.
Energy storage commercially is like you get these big warehouses stuffed full of batteries, quite literally, that are ready to feed back into the grid on peak demand and provide some storage for potential expansion for like server farms and stuff in the future. So it's kind of a two-edged thing on the commercial side. But then there's a residential side. Nobody wants to have to worry about brownouts when they flip their air conditioner on in the summertime. So I mean, if you get a battery as a capacitor in a circuit, and it takes a lot of that shock out of the electrical grid. So if you get more and more homes having independent power storage, take some of that shock out of the grid, it really helps everybody in that whole system, not just the commercial side. So it isn't just a sales gimmick. It's let's keep the lights and the air conditioner going in our house in the summertime. So energy storage I think is going to be a decent theme going forward into this year, and this is just one of a few stocks that I put out in that list. Another one that kind of hit a day trading target today very methodically. I scalped it this morning, FREY, all right, to that 304 target. Easy trades. Same sector, just more of a penny stock play, but gives great day trading. It's easy chart to trade, and then looking at the weekly market structure again, this is where the trend looks like it could begin. Above $3 too much with some good consolidation first. 370 is a pretty obvious target with the previous bar high here, and if we break above that, reversion trade 640 is on the mark. Pay attention to this one. This one will give us some decent little setups. I don't know too much about the company. I never really do a lot of digging into fundamentals, but so far the price action has been great on this thing, and just enough liquidity to keep it interesting for me. So pretty easy trades. The measure move was just, boring obvious this morning. That was just a boring easy trade. So when it's boring, you're doing it right. A couple other mentions in here. I like Generac. This is a household name. You can walk into Costco and buy it, and it's got pretty much a nice reversal right off of a key point here, pulling back to the 200 day and getting ready to go. I like this chart, man, and reversion's pretty obvious for the daily chart right here, about 172.5. This might be one you might even be interested in there, Matthew. This is a great setup. I kind of like the
I do like that setup. Yeah, bounce off the 200 day. A lot of white space up there. It is interesting.
sticks it right to a reversion, and then low end trade to about 166 or so. Just look at the top of the previous bar. So I like to draw on the wicks. I like to watch those because that's where all the limit orders are. So if you see some profit taking, that's probably where it'll occur, right in there around 166 or so. But good setup. It looks like plenty bullish. We got a nice clean reversal off of here. If you look this on the 4-hour chart and the 2-hour chart, I mean, it's not quite a double bottom, but it is a nice wedge failed bear flag break. This is where I used to call these pop and drop bear flags, but they can still fail. So if you kind of mark out the first high in that scenario and then go for the mean right in the middle-ish, it's done this. It's gotten above the mean, broke out, tested it again, and trended. So this is where I'd be watching for continuation in this to trend above this level here. So watch for a break above 159 and momentum to take it to 166, 167, and then full reversion to like 172.50 is pretty possible on this one. Great setup. I like the chart. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Been crickets today. I got like one person that said good morning. Good morning. Looking on a couple others, I don't like this company, but it's getting some notice. MVST. I mean, this is one that's been manipulated, and I think you have a reverse split in here recently too, somewhere. Maybe not. It just kind of got thrown at me when I started looking at peers in this area of energy storage. And it started picking up some momentum on the weekly and the daily here, and we got this parabolic trend here. I'd be kind of keen to see if this thing does a market structure move too, and then just kind of looking left, there's a pretty obvious, just a barely break above that previous high. So it may continue to consolidate here for a while before it gives us a trend, but I don't see it getting delisted anytime really soon because they haven't had any threatening letters in this whole time. They're trading at about 15 to 30 cents or so. Who knows? But it's just one that's interesting to me. I'm not really throwing money at this thing yet. I'm just kind of saying keep an eye on it. It could get interesting soon. And if this is a short squeeze, this is where new money would start to notice it. So this is where you might see market structure follow through on this one. Another one that's kind of manipulated in that same fashion, Energy Vault, is a little bit more known to the average retail trader. But the measured move was pretty obvious on this. It came up, gave half back, gave us the extension. 270 was a target. That's done. Let this accumulate. Let's see if it gives us a market structure move to start a trend here. Same scenario. Looking for about $8.20 for a reversion trade set up to accumulate here on the outside. But first, it's got some serious headwinds. Let's look lower. Got to hold support around 230 or so, and then got to break about 320 or so before that can even have a chance. And then, of course, pay attention to this high here. I stripe so many pivots on these penny charts, it's not even funny. But usually it's just a matter of trading from pivot to pivot. So day traders love these. Be aware that this is definitely not investment advice. This is a let's scalp it and move on type of scenario until it gives us a trend here. Maybe later we can look at being a little more long term on this thing, but for now, scalp it. It's got some good potential for scalps. The other retail paste chart, I almost hate mentioning this one, especially when Kramer talks about it. Plug power. Ugh.
Wait, Kramer likes Plug Power?
He hated it last year. He said sell it.
Right. No, I knew that. I remember that.
We were like, hell no, that's the market structure. We scalped it right back for the reversion, but then we ignored it forever. And then now it's starting to get interesting. Parabolic trend on the daily right to our reversion target. And then now it's interesting. So keep an eye on this one. But remember, this thing, every time an analyst of any kind who has any merit at all, whether it be like Goldman Sachs analyst, Kramer. I don't want to see Woods talking about it, but you know, who knows? Long story short, when an analyst like that opens their mouth, look for liquidity on the chart and just trade where the liquidity is. You know, it's pretty simple. Day trade it, maybe a couple overnighters, whatever. But when they stop talking about it, that's when you pay attention. And that's where I'm thinking about $3.25 is the go-to line. If it starts to trend above there, it's an easy shot to 5, and that's a nice trade for anybody, percentage-wise. So be on the lookout for this one to give you some good setups here. And it's just kind of one that's lumped into the energy storage theme that I'm kicking around. So, yeah. Another honorable mention, another retail stock. This one's not quite a meme stock, but it can be. QuantumScape, sorry. This has been an easier chart to day trade and stop there. Just wait for this thing to break above 650 if it's got a remote chance of being trendy here to 825. Okay. Until then, market structure's not done with this thing. It's been descending the whole time. So this has been manipulated. It has been like pretty much mangled by short sellers. You can see they just rinse and repeat. It's like whack-a-mole to them. Here is where it has a chance in hell to trend. Don't ignore it. Certainly scalp it if you've got the fortitude to do so. But pay attention in the next few weeks. If this starts to trend, this is where I'd be looking for market structure to do its thing. So it's going to start maybe giving us some signs here in the next couple weeks, I think. So we'll see. But so far, it's been a great little stock to day trade and you know, kind of rip around with. But don't go being a perma bull on this thing. I don't want to see you guys saying nothing but bullish things on the Weeple social forum. Be aware. Sunrun is another one. Same kind of deal. Only this one is not as bad as Plug Power for getting beat up by the short sellers, but here's where we have a potential reversal. We could see this thing break R1 about 1160 and maybe give us a half back to $15 in the near future. So pay attention to this. Give this daily candle a chance to print a high wave. It's already on its way. And if it melts above that zone, cool, trend on, we'll eat this bar. And then don't forget the fib level. It's obvious on that bar, about 1420. Call it that. Whoops. I hate when my drawing tool like disrespects me like that. Last but not least on my list of highly manipulated retail chasers, SHLS, right on that key pivot area, 630. Same thing, market structure all over again. And zoom out, dude. That thing's got some interest in it. And a move above here, above 630 with some good volatility. I mean, we got a couple resistance points, 830, 850. But dang, this thing has potential to run that whole trend right back to like $15 pretty easily. So watch this one. Market structure is on the hunt for this one. And that daily 200 is right there. So if we break above that 200, we got a pretty good shot at trending here a little bit higher. So this is definitely on my radar. I'm not going to put any definite targets on it, but I think about $7 short term is pretty obvious there. You know, just look left, find the high. Get into boogieing above that, just watching moving averages all cross up, and we'll see what they do. But for now, this is a quick range of where I'd expect some day traders to take advantage of this. Again, if it starts to trend here, this is where I'd be watching it. Last but not least, on my list, XPON. Garbage stock, had a 1 for 100 reverse split recently. I scalped it. It was easy, pretty easy move. I mean, it went beyond my target. It hit 450. I was out at, you know, like 450 or 355 or so. But I'm kind of watching it for some reverberation trades here, and sometimes you get, you know, a couple little moves. $2 is the round number that you watch for support on. If it gives us a bounce, it'll go back to about 220. Pay big whoop, but a 10% scalp is a 10% scalp. I don't care what the equity price is. So, you know, just scalp it. It's one of the chunk stocks in this sector, but it makes some pretty good little day trade moves. So, yeah, give it a chance to scalp, and it becomes easier. And it's kind of lining up where all the shorts are covering here. If they haven't covered already, you could see a quick pop for a squeeze if anybody gets interested in this thing. It could shoot to $3 pretty quick, but I would say profit target if you're going to scalp it about 250 if it short squeezes here. So keep an eye on this one, and it'll give you some signs. It's a great day trader stock. Any other mentions?
No, nothing else I can think of. I mean, I shorted a few things this morning. Nothing to write home about though.
Yeah. And we're still kind of waiting for Apple to finish accumulating here. Some of the big names are just, they're in a lurch. They're not really doing anything. Bristol Myers trade, that worked out great. Now we're back to that pivot line. It's kind of hanging right at the edge of our measured move target here. If it breaks this wedge, sure, it can shoot for $60 again, but that's not, not standing out to me. ILMN kind of came back to that reversion right to the liquidity zone as planned. We kind of caught that one pretty easy. Not very exciting though. NFE might give you one more chance. Market structure is loving this one, and it's still got potential to run to 22, but let's be real and look for support must hold about 1480, 1475-ish. If it can hold that range, cool. It's got a good chance of resuming this trend. If it rejects here, give it a few months. It's going to give you market structure. But so far, that was a killer trade for me. I caught both of those moves just methodically, but
and I missed all of them. So,
but don't take it off your radar. It may give us one more chance.
No. Nothing ever comes off the radar.
It's got that potential. For me, that was an easy chart. I'm a day trader at heart, so I love looking at these little rounding bottoms in the end of a trend like that. That's just for me, it's just common sense to scalp those. I'm done with it for now. I'll wait and see what happens with it. SSR mining kind of is still holding that support level. It's got potential still, at least to come into about 775, 780 by the end of this. But if it can't get above there, I just let it do its thing and grind sideways for a little longer. They bought a lot of property, and that money comes out of equity. So yeah, that money comes from somewhere. People chased it. They caught the dead cat. They caught the trend out. Give it time to accumulate here. It may still give us some potential to be a decent miner back to $9.50, $10, but for now, it's a wait and see. That's why you're not seeing much volume in it anymore, and it's just grinding on sideways here. So give us some time. It'll give us another setup. My $9 target fell short just a little bit, but I was out of that trade on that little rip down, so $9 strikes paid me over 100%. I'm happy with them. I'll wait and let the next setup accumulate before I jump back in that again. Talent Energy, kind of setting up here, just above a half here. I don't know if I trust that
I'd
though.
like to see the 50-day hold here.
Right.
I own this one.
And at 50 is just perfect trend line on this one. And it wicked down to it today. If that closes a nice hammer up here, red or green, it doesn't matter. If it holds that 212, 20 on that pivot exactly, I might be interested in following through on that one and run it to 230. It's got that potential. The weekly chart on this one is still a bit parabolic. That pullback is kind of imminent, but the 2-hour chart says we should see some buyers here, and you certainly see that wick. I'm not the only guy looking at it. There were some buyers here, so let's wait and see what happens with that 212.20 specifically. And if it holds above that on the close, I think we got a good shot at running higher. The other short that we had, Upstart.
I am still short Upstart, so
Melting down again, my friend. That measured move is underway to at least fill that gap. 55.60 is my pivot target on that one. It may finish the whole move down to $50. Kudos, man. We can certainly enjoy our arms patting ourselves on the back for that one. That was a good short.
Yep, that was a nice one.
And then last on this list, this is just kind of following back from last week's call outs. Valerio, VLO, man, or Valero, not Valerio. Where'd I get the
Valera.
made that reversion trade right to that LZ. Today we made an AB move in that thing and came right back to support. So again, watch this 2-hour close. If it holds a nice hammer here, we got a shot at running to B again for the day traders. But for the daily chart, it's not done yet. That's where the 20 period is. So if we accumulate here, the reversion target's still underway. 130
Yeah, I'd
is
like to see it break above the 20 here.
ideally. It's got to. If it can't break that 20, walk away. But the LZ's right
I
there.
do like the energy names, but I don't like them a ton.
Yeah. You like them with a certain percentage of risk. That's
Yeah.
how traders stay positive, man. 130 I think is a reversion target, pretty obvious on that one, and just watch this zone. It'll give us some signs here, but this just a follow up. We called this one out last week. It nailed the AB on the liquidity zone, freaking methodically, just about. Now we wait and see. So it did what we wanted it to do from last week. Now we just wait and see what comes out of it. We're pretty good at finding these, so we'll find some more. I think that's about it on my radar. I'm pretty much done for the day as far as my trading goes, other than just
Yeah, I mean, I probably am too, unless something weird happens.
running some debit spread stuff. So we talked about making an official announcement on this, but we could talk about what our plans are at least. Starting.
Yeah, so the idea is that for one of these, we do a weekly Zoom go-to-meeting, something like that, where we'll put out the information, at least a week in advance. People can sign up. Um, we'll do a lot more education. The idea behind doing it Zoom go-to-meeting and then trying to put it on put it on YouTube is to make it somewhat timeless.
Right.
The problem when you're just going through names is unless you're on this live, I mean, you listen to this tomorrow, all these names could be totally obsolete and we're looking at different things.
Right.
But if we're, spending some time on names and then a lot of time on education, that's something you could look at anytime and get something from.
Absolutely. And then at the very least, you learn strategy and how to trade these names
Yeah.
with efficiency. I love it, and I think going forward we can lean more into the education on one broadcast. So maybe like Tuesdays we get the list of the stuff we're watching, and probably by Thursday we're either in the trade or we're ready to make some moves, whether it be exiting our trades or getting into them further, whatever. It seems to be that most of the setups we see on this stuff show up Tuesdays, and then Thursdays we get the follow through. So that seems like the thing to do is do more of the education stuff on Thursdays to me. But moving forward, though, I think we're gonna hand it off. Matthew's gonna do the education side on his end, and then we'll just team up on it and walk you through every bit of it. And then
yeah, and again, I mean, my style and your style are totally different, so it's great. You can hear, a lot of different ways to look at things.
absolutely. And then best of all is it provides a sign up. So like you can go, and I put a link to the sign up for the heat strategy mailer in the description here. So if you guys want to click on that and sign up, that'll kind of take you there. And then we'll go from there for doing a little bit more hands-on stuff with a Zoom call with enough people signed up. I mean, you can all be there and be more interactive than you can on YouTube, and there's no delay. So
Yep.
that makes it a lot easier to get hands-on contact with. I mean, a guy who what are you? You're over 5 billion under management now.
No, depends on MicroStrategy.
Ah,
We're
yeah,
we're more like 3.5 at the moment.
that's still, I mean, quite humbling for an average retail trader such as myself to be in the same room, being able to interact with somebody of your stature. Just say, you guys
Oh,
have that
thank you.
opportunity too, and that's where we're going with this, is a little bit more hands-on, where we can actually bounce ideas back and forth. Hell, you might even have something that comes up to your attention that we're not looking at, that we should be looking at. And it's a win-win. The old rising tide raises all boats type of scenario. You get enough eyes on the market and some educated eyes focused on the market, you get some really lucrative opportunities. And that's what we're getting at, is not only we're going to give some fish, we're going to teach you how to fish and how to take advantage of this stuff. So
Yep.
that's the idea. And then the fact that you get to bounce it off of, I guess I can call myself a professional retail trader. And then, you get somebody who's, I mean, you're, I think, beyond an institutional trader at this point. You know, it makes sense.
Yeah,
You get the best of both worlds, and that's the idea. Is we do have different styles, but they work so similarly that the synergy is there. So
totally.
right on. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you guys next, or Thursday, actually, and then probably going into next week. I think the either, and you could do Thursdays or Tuesdays, whatever you want to do on that. I'm totally open. I'm DFA, baby.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
But until then, we'll see you guys on Thursday. And again, just be nimble in this market. I think the more Trump starts talking, the more volatility is going to start rocking. So, um, be ready to run some puts on UVXY. We were talking about that earlier, but yeah, $21 I think is where I'm going to look to grab some 18 puts myself. And it's coming. I think we're going to get that volatility just hand over fist in this year.